Yo, yo, yo! Alright, before we hop into Game 5, let's set the stage a little bit before the match starts. Um, the format, first of all, for the Male Melee Open is Conquest format. So, what that means is the entrants have to win with each of their teams that they bring. Now, so far, at the beginning of the tournament, WebBowser and Minimal actually already went up together, and WebBowser was able to take the win. Now, what Minimal did is he got knocked back down into the losers group and was able to win against Small Grump here, which means the grand final is again against WebBowser and Minimal, which is what we've been watching. Now, what this means is that if Minimal, and the score right now is 2-2. So what this means is that if WebBowser wins this final game, WebBowser wins the tournament. If WebBowser drops this match and Minimal comes in and wins the set, going 3-2, then the bracket will be reset and they'll play another full set for the grand finals for the tournament. So, really excited, really high impact game. It's kind of a make it or break it for Minimal. If he loses this, he loses the tournament. Comes second in the tournament, and so a little bit of pressure on WebBowser as well to close it out. Because if he drops this match, then they have to play a whole set, and who knows what can happen from there. So let's hop into Game 5 and see what happens. Here we go into the last game of this set. Alright, we got Minimal's Sayla team against WebBowser's Jane team. Either one of these players has to win a game with either of these teams to win the set. Again, WebBowser is probably going to struggle against that Grace again this game. Just like last game, doesn't have a ton of answers outside of Pema's Firewall to that Grace. Minimal considering leading with Grace here, recognizing that as a powerful threat against WebBowser. Checking some damage. WebBowser likely looking to lead something that will threaten out an Eric lead or even a Grace lead. WebBowser chooses to start off strong with a Windle against Minimal's Eric. Eric always a great lead, gets some extra charge with Flashy and Fireworks. Jane switches in, takes very little from that Flashy Fireworks, starts healing back up with her heart lucky pendant. WebBowser might be looking for a pop-ups here, get on some early switching pressure or deterrent. Knows that Eric is forced out here, but instead opts for a bypass clause, hitting Zale for a ton of damage. Zale outspeeds, threatens with Peck. WebBowser chooses to bring in Cherry here. Cherry having decently high emotional defense now. But not anymore after that Peck. Vivid Peck drops it down in 8 stages. WebBowser likely considering a decoy here just to scout what Minimal's going to go for. Minimal in a pretty powerful position here. Fashion Vice may actually secure the knockout onto Zale. I'm not quite sure on that calc. Looks like Minimal does not run any sort of emotional defense on his Zale here. A decoy from WebBowser's Cherry. Zale calls the bluff, goes for another Peck. Not quite sure what WebBowser's going to go for here. Could go for another decoy. Isn't in a very powerful commanding position here, though. Just sacrificing Cherry here for a last-ditch pop-ups might be worthwhile, just to get that free switch in after setting up the pop-ups. WebBowser instead choosing to go for a Fashion Vice. Secures the kill on Minimal Zale. Alright. Fashion Vice dealing extra damage if the opponent has an item or a necklace attached, I should say. Minimal chooses to bring in Eric. Eric does not outspeed Cherry here, but does threaten with a bypass clause, which goes through make decoy. WebBowser knows this though, switches back to his Jane. Takes nothing again from Eric's attack. Starts healing back up with Lucky Pendant. Jane now free to go for something like another bypass clause, hand cannon if he wants to catch in the switch to Grace. Though Minimal knows he's got that Jane in the back. Does wall WebBowser's own Jane. WebBowser might take advantage of the situation here to set up some pop-ups, start punishing Minimal switches. Minimal chooses instead to switch in Grace, isn't scared of hand cannon. The beast is in. WebBowser's Bane. WebBowser does not have a parry available, really needs to get some charge going. Switches in Kaiban to tank that unbutton. The Minimal's Grace is starting to speed up again. The problem is, what does Kaiban do here to threaten Grace? Not much. A charge panel would be good to kind of get back ahead on the battery war on WebBowser's side, though it just lets Grace keep setting up and chipping away at Kaiban. Kaiban doesn't have a great way to heal here outside of a Flourish Tidy. Charge panel does put WebBowser to a full battery, though Minimal is there himself. Very heated match. Minimal going for another unbutton. WebBowser choosing to admire. Does damage, does respectable damage, but it boosts Minimal's Grace's attacks. All of her stats up, which makes her even more of a threat. Not sure the thinking there. Minimal brings in Eric for free after that fleeting locket proc on Grace. Threatens immediately with the disruption wave to get rid of those pop-ups. WebBowser likely looking to bring Jane back in. Realizing that Minimal's Eric doesn't really do much. Ooh, I like that choice to flourish Disruption Wave by Minimal. It means that Eric does not get that sad status effect, it only transfers it to Jane, which means he's free to keep getting charged from Flashy and Fireworks. Jane just kind of sitting there, walls Eric pretty effectively with that healing from Lucky Pendant. Fireworks from Minimal's Eric. Ooh, but WebBowser goes for a bypass clause, proccing Gloam Locket here on Eric. Eric survives with 1 HP due to that Gloam Locket because he was at full HP. Jane slowly healing back up with her Lucky Pendant. Minimal probably looking to sack Eric here, I would imagine. He's got Kaiban low enough where doesn't really have to be worried about saving a digital attack at this point. Does need to worry about something like a decoy on WebBowser's side though. WebBowser choosing instead to save that battery and just reply back with a Flourish bypass clause for the healing, knowing he needs to keep Jane healthy for that Sayla in the back. Minimal now at 2 full batteries. And Grace back in. Buff stats, buff initiative. Nothing wants to switch into the unbutton here. WebBowser chooses to switch in Kaiban, sacking him. Does get that charge just by a fighter forfeiting to an attack. So what does he have that stands against this Grace now? Wendell still has his Gloam Locket he can rely on. A snub would be not a bad play here. Eat an attack from Grace and then reply with a snub, making her sad, which means those status effects are ignored. Instead goes for Pema here. Maybe a Flicker Glove would put Minimal's Grace down to 0. Not sure on the calc there, but on button definitely is going to get the knockout onto WebBowser's Pema here. Opting for a Flourish. WebBowser just one tick short of a full battery. Hasn't had a chance to make any decoy yet here. That Flourish on Minimal's side, taking advantage of Sayla's Captain plan and healing up 50. WebBowser brings in Window here, full battery, which means he threatens a decoy with a successful parry. Minimal considering something like a ribbon twirl here. I'm not sure I like that play when WebBowser has a full battery. Can parry that easily. I'd rather see something like a Flourish from Minimal. WebBowser not choosing to use that battery quite yet. Instead relying on Gloam Locket and going for that snub play, which makes Minimal's Grace sad. Sad meaning those stat buffs. All the attack buffs Grace got from Admire, all the initiative she got from using Unbutton is no longer effective. Jane is in. Jane does not like being in front of a window either. Very interesting stand down here with both players having a full battery available. A parry from something like on Jane, and if WebBowser doesn't call that parry successfully and gets his attack blocked, a bypass clause could easily spell the end of WebBowser's window here. WebBowser choosing to switch out to his Jane takes basically 0 from that bypass clause after Heart Pendant healing. Lucky Pendant healing, I should say. Again, both players have a full battery, something like a Flourish Hand Cannon to boost their own digital attack here might be an option. Minimal really wants to get Grace in here, but is threatened by that hand cannon. Instead chooses to leave his Jane in against WebBowser's Jane. Both fighters just kind of chipping away at each other, slowly getting themselves more charge available to use. Minimal up to 2 batteries now. He's free to spin one pretty easily if he chooses to, though opting to save it. Bowser taking advantage of the stalemate situation to get some pop-ups onto the field. Eric is gone, which means those pop-ups are here to stay. WebBowser potentially looking to flourish another bypass clause for the healing here. Instead opts for a hand cannon. Using bypass clause, maybe anticipating something like Cherry to switch in there. The Minimal has the advantage here with that Say the Captain plan. Can flourish hand cannon for the healing as well as the stat increase from the flourished hand cannon. Hand cannon when flourished raises your digital attack at the cost of lowering the base power of the move. So kind of a big tempo negative up front for a ton of power later, assuming you get to use it, that is. WebBowser starting to get low on HP even with that lucky pendant healing him up. Yeah, minimal flourishing that hand cannon for very little damage, but gets that 4-stage boost onto his digital attack. So WebBowser maybe just seeing that stalemate is just getting him more battery that he can use later with that Windle in the back. Kind of hoping to clean up with Windle in the end game. It's going to be hard to clean with Windle now that Captain Jane is down. That Thorn Pendant bypass clause, Thorn Pendant chip from the bypass clause means WebBowser's Jane was in KO range from the hand cannon. This is going to be tough for WebBowser. If Minimal gets this, we're going into another set of games. Minimal chooses to sack Jane here. Doesn't need her anymore. Not against Wendell and Cherry. Saving that battery. Both players at 2 full battery now. Bowser does have Proxy Cherry, which means Sayla is a threat. Having high emotional defense and a priority move in Flicker Glove. Flourish Flicker Glove means that WebBowser cannot parry here. Well, he could parry, but it won't be effective. It'll just be a waste of battery. Cherry's down to a Flourish Flicker Glove from Minimal's Sayla. Sayla takes Fury Pendant chip damage. Windle comes in. Not much he can do against the Flourish Flicker Glove though. Parry will not save you here, WebBowser. This looks like game, which means the set goes to Minimal. Which means we see a Grand Finals reset. And a whole new set of matches. So, man, really good game. A lot more battery charge happening this game. I feel like this game could have gone a lot of different ways, depending on how the players use their battery, whether they did or didn't flourish or parry. Minimal really taking advantage of Grace here again, recognizing that WebBowser doesn't have a great answer to Grace. Also, Cherry a little bit ineffective against Minimal's team here. With that proxy means it goes down easily to Sayla's Flicker Glove. Fashion Advice doesn't do much against Grace, doesn't do much against Eric. Does okay damage to Zale as we saw, though isn't safe even behind a decoy with 2 of Minimal's fighters having bypass claws. I mean, Jane doesn't want to stay in against Cherry, but Eric threatening that bypass clause, especially in that first turn, was pretty crazy. Man, yeah, really good game. I feel like this, like I said, I feel like this game could have gone so many different ways. A lot of different decisions made that made it pretty exciting. So I look forward to the next set of games. Thanks for watching.